There we go. We are live now. Okay, are you guys able to see my screen with our objectives for the day? Awesome. Okay, so blended learning, the Cliffs Notes, and my last session, a lot of people really had in their head blended learning with remote learning, which that's definitely an option. We are back in person, and I'm going to argue blended learning works much better in person. So keep that in mind, that our discussions are focused more on in person when we think remote learning, when we think blended learning, not that we can't shift some of these skills to remote when that happens. So our objectives at the end of this to be able to define what blended learning is. Per Catlin Tucker, you can go online and Google's it and find many different kind of variations and takes on this. Identify potential challenges, and then hopefully troubleshoot those and see that there's enough benefits that we can offset some of those challenges to make things work, to be better instructors, and to make things work better for our students. Differentiate between the station rotation model, whole group model, and the playlist model. And last session, somebody is like, is that kind of like grid method? It's pretty similar. You're going to see a lot of similarities there if people are more familiar with that. And then figuring out which one works best for you. Both, I know we've got some JROTC instructors, and I know there's a blend of like actual physical activities and uniform inspections. We've got some lab instructors in here. They've got longer stretches of time. We've got some academics in here. So sometimes our shorter time pushes us to maybe need to work with one model over another. For me personally, when we start talking about the different station models, my students and what their ability levels are and what works for them kind of has dictated which model I've kind of fallen mostly into. Figuring out what resources we already have at our disposal. So I will tell you, it's a little bit of work front loading and maybe changing some things and setting things up where students are really driving the ship with some of these stations. But we've got a lot of things that we've already been using or doing that we can kind of pull up and fill some of these station sessions, or we've got resources that the district has purchased that maybe some of us in the group are already using and know the benefits, and we can kind of share that out. It definitely helps to hear other teachers are using them and they're worthwhile. And then ideally, as soon as tomorrow, except not actually tomorrow since we are not here, I could. My hope would be that you walk away with one new thing that you would be able to try out or implement. I obviously like our time to be together worthwhile today. All right, so moving to our survey says, I'm going to move us into breakout rooms, and you're going to talk with your partner or partners about the top 3 challenges teachers face. And once again, this is just in general, not necessarily remote learning or with blended learning, just in general, being a teacher, the top 3 things that kind of make it challenging for us would be. So I'm going to open some breakout rooms for us. We've got special guest, Miss Lillenstein, popping in. Hello, Miss Lillenstein. We are about to go into some breakout rooms to brainstorm the top 3 challenges teachers face. So if you would like to join. I'm going to move people into rooms. So once you get assigned to a room, pop on in there.
So there's no
Hey, how'd the first one go?
reasons for Nearpod. It's awesome. And it's
Cool. All right, I'm bouncing. I'm just trying to, I'm like on 4 different calls, so sorry to interrupt.
been very
No
helpful.
problem.
All right, have a great day.
Really makes, you know, with students.
Okay, apparently rooms 1 and 2 have a lot of challenges.
Well, we just left early before it closed so that we could, because we already got our top 3.
All right.
I
All
love
right.
how it warns you when you come back, recording in progress, caution, Big Brother is listening.
Yes. Especially you need to be reminded of that. I set that up on purpose.
I don't need to be reminded. I try not to even say a thing because of that.
All right, so let's hear out some of our top 3 challenges we as teachers face. Kate, would you mind sharing out from your group?
Sure. Kim and I talked about a couple different things. One being student engagement being a pretty big challenge. It's not there. Other ones we talked about were like varying baseline knowledge levels, like how they come to us, what they know before they get to us varies drastically. And whether that's for a lab or an academic class, like it still varies. We also mentioned shifting curriculums, graduation requirements constantly changing is a challenge for sure. And then I added in my personal favorite, which is social media and personal technology distractions.
Gotcha. All right, let's hear from, pick on my English teacher friends, Morgan, who is on the move. What did you guys talk about?
I'm here. So we talked about a variety of things. We talked about, similarly to the other group, motivation, just, students wanting or willing to complete the things that they need to do. We talked about student discipline. We always talk about real world, Mr. Kainer, he shared, in real world, if we would treat our students like they were in the real world, would they have a job? Would they keep a job? And then we also talked about the overuse of technology. The speakers here with
Yeah, I
me.
wanted to be on this. How do I get on this?
It's in the Schoology course. Miss Eaker wants to join, so I told her it's in the
What
school-
is this? one?
balance with blended learning. Cliff
Okay,
Notes.
that's not the one I wanted to get on. The other one's canceled.
We're recording this one, so you'll be able
They're
to.
recording it.
Yes. All right. So so far 2 groups have talked about student motivation, accountability. Couple of groups have talked about just all these extra things teachers have to deal with, whether it's discipline, whether it's new requirements that students have for graduation, pathways. All those things are pretty time consuming outside of just what we're expected to do on a daily basis. All right, let's hear from Sadie. Anything else that you guys had, or?
Yeah, we said time management, just all the various hats that teachers have to wear is a big challenge. We said technology and dealing with that, more specifically, the kids' technology like cell phones is a big challenge. And we said classroom management is a challenge sometimes, just like making sure everyone in the room is focused on what we're trying to teach.
Gotcha. All right. Well, survey says this was according to Catlin Tucker. And this was also prior to pandemic and us having a lot of new things put on our plate. But I think we hit quite a few of the things that teachers in general have challenges with. So time, we've talked about that. There's always new things being asked of us, things we need to do outside of the classroom. I know we especially are facing more like staffing shortages, sub shortages. So then what time we think we're going to get isn't always given to us. Nobody really talked about grading or feedback, but that's probably maybe an outs. Where are my English teachers? That's definitely,
I
Oof.
feel like that one is, I mean, it is definitely a challenge for me, but it flows into that time.
correct.
Like, given the enough time, grading and feedback wouldn't be an issue.
And then I think all of the groups kind of hit on student apathy. If students, and I think a lot of that is coming from the distraction of social media and cell phones. And unfortunately, a lot of that stuff, as educators are probably aware, like people are paid money to develop things that stimulate their brains. And it is hard to pull them away from that, to get them to listen to what we're explaining, to explain to them why these things are important to them. So yeah, that's a huge challenge. All right, so I think we did pretty well with hitting on that. So let's think about our why. All of you guys signed up to come here. I know we were all, told we had to do something, but you chose this session, which I appreciate. So let's think about why you would like to learn more about blended learning. Why are you interested in learning more about stations, rotations, online, offline? What is it that you hope to get from this? So if you have the slide deck, there should be a link to take you to this Jamboard. Hopefully, this is where we had some issues with my last group. They had a link that put them as a viewer so they could see it, but not add to it. As you'll see, there's some extra sticky notes on here. So hopefully, I see Morgan in there. Morgan, is it going to let you, and if you haven't used something like this before, on the left-hand side over here, you should be able to click and create a sticky note to put your why, what you would like to get out of this. So Morgan, is it going to let you add a sticky note? Okay. And if anybody is wondering how in the heck to get to here, what this is, if you open up the, yeah, I knew Mr. Keener was crushing another snack pack and not paying attention to what to do. So if you aren't to the Jamboard, if you open up that Google slide deck, this is slide 1, 2, 3, 4. Slide 4, your why, and then you go to the bottom and then click here. And then that should take you to this page.
I had to start the stupid slideshow. I was looking at it in the main view where I could.
This Jamboard is awesome. Side note, Emma, I'm going to need you to tell me how to do this.
If anything, I am big on, I think it's important for you guys to experience what blended learning is. So it's having a lot of things that we move into individually or together. So I think I know for me, that's how I learned, by visualizing and by actually experiencing what this would be like from the learner side. So good. I'm glad that this is something you enjoy. All right, so let's look at some of our responses here. So I see this orange one. Blended learning intrigues me because I think it will give my students flexibility in their learning, which will allow me to focus on my teaching where my students really need it. And yes, that is a hope. And it takes some work to, set up these stations. It also takes some time and effort to get students kind of comfortable and familiar with the expectations when they are working on their own, either in groups or independently. So that's where, yeah, once you can get that set up, then it gives you time to really sit down and work with students when they are struggling on something individually, or they've been out and we're catching them up. So yes. I feel like not learning about blended learning is a serious missed opportunity. It seems like this is the direction that education is moving. I love the flexibility and autonomy. Yeah, when we get to the definite, you guys, some of you have already like read the book. Because yeah, a blended learning is going to come along with, or the hope of it is a lot more control over how students learn as far as like pace, a lot more flexibility about what they're learning, how they're learning. So yeah, definitely hitting on that. To work your class into another class assignment. That is very interesting. And if we can get those cross-curricular things, if that's what I think we're hearing, that is always valuable. Our students don't always transfer very well. So if we can, talk about how these things connect to the other classes, that's really important. All right, new ideas. I'm definitely there. I'm not a creative person. I like to see things that work and then steal them, make them mine, but that's, yeah, why reinvent the wheel here. All right, and if I skipped over someone's, I am so sorry. Although this one I want to point out, this came up in the last session, and I love it when people are direct and honest to achieve accomplished teacher rating. And this, I'm also OTES trained. So the evaluation rubrics that they come in and use when they're evaluating us, what we have really moved to be able to demonstrate that we are strong teachers is no longer sage on a stage, like us up there doing our thing. It's what have we facilitated for students to do. So if you are looking to up your evaluation ratings, one, this is just good teaching, meeting our students where they are, meeting their interests as much as possible. We talked about how getting students engaged is a challenge. But what evaluators are really looking for is, what can the students do? Are they actually taking what we've set up for them and working collaboratively? Do we have students stepping up and leading? These are things that are going to be more important outside of our classrooms one day. So I love that somebody was really direct with that. And this is going to help us as teachers for sure. Oh, there go my lights. Oh, sorry. This was next to there on purpose, I believe. Mention lessons to come and reference lessons previously. Oh, I see. So like really showing how things link. Okay, so these are some great things. I'm checking my chat really fast to see if I haven't missed something. Okay, lots of good feedback on what we're seeing with students. Okay, so activity done there. Mr. K, I'm going to kick you out. This is the one they're recording too. If you're watching this and wondering why I'm so distracted, Lieutenant Keener is putting some things in the chat and purposely moving his sticky note to like distract me. This is what all of us go through in our classrooms, right? That one student that knows how to like mess with you. Okay, so moving on. So this little visual over here is my attempt to make this as quick, to the point, and hopefully useful as possible. So I took an entire book for you guys and boiled it down to this little one pager here. So you will need to get to this slide in the slide deck so you can actually click and open this page. So you can click on these blue links. But blended learning, we're going back to our objectives. So this is per Catlin Tucker, blended learning is active, engaged learning online combined with active, engaged learning offline. And that I think is really important. We've got to get kids off screen sometimes, and we've got to get physical things in their hands. So they put their phones down so that they are, creators. Our students really are creators. If we have watched them with TikTok, they will invest some time. They love creating things. So we need to do better about giving them physical, tangible things in our classrooms where they feel like they are creating and doing, but with their hands. That gives students more control over time, place, pace, and path of learning. And on our Jamboard, a lot of people are bringing up that flexibility. We want to give students that flexibility, and sometimes we just don't know how or what that should look like. All right, so I'm going to give you guys a minute to, if you're in the slide deck, sounds like you need to actually put it in presentation mode. Click on the image, and down at the bottom, a link should come up that will hopefully prompt you to make your own copy. So I'm going to give you guys a minute to see if that works. I'm going to go turn my lights on.
Emma, can you say that last piece again? Like once you're in, because I had to, since I'm in the cafeteria, because I don't have internet in my room, I don't have my monitor. So
Okay, have
in the
you,
slide deck, yeah, I have the slide deck. Where am I
Okay.
supposed to click in it?
so if you are in the slide deck, there's like this little cloud that says click document. So if you click on the picture of the document, I think the link will actually kind of pop up down towards the bottom.
Mhm.
Click on that link. You'll be prompted to make a copy, and then you should be in your own copy of the document.
Bless you.
Oh, sorry.
right.
I do.
No. Now you are.
2 years doing this. You would think I got this down.
Well, you're used to being the one running the show where, you know, we're up here talking, putting on a show for like all the blank boxes. I love all the faces on here. This is a really nice treat. I'm calling you out, Brian Utter, my only black box. Okay, so everybody hopefully has that document pulled up. What I would like for us to do is to take maybe 2 minutes individually and go through the document. You should be able to click on the blue links for station rotation model, whole group rotation, playlist model, and it will pull up templates, ones that I have gone and found, not ones I've created. And then as you're going through and looking at what these are supposed to look like, use the comment features to add what challenges you think this might present, either for your content, for your students, for your knowledge, or what questions you have, like what would this look like? What would I do? So let me show you in the document if you haven't made comments before. In your document towards the top, you should have this little icon, and then over to the side, you'll have add a comment. And then you can start clicking on things and they'll pop up to the side, add a comment. So what does this mean? My kids aren't very independent. So whatever it could be, that's a challenge. Okay, so we'll take 2 minutes and then we'll come back together to talk about what challenges or questions you have and try to address them.
Emma, under that station rotation model, when you pop it up and you've got a little video in the corner, was that you purposely just put a countdown clock just to show you can put something in there? Yeah, that upper right
So-
corner.
Yes, this was a template that I stole, and I wish I could remember who I stole it from. I should be giving them credit. Probably Catlin Tucker. I scoured a lot of her blogs. So if you, especially I think labs that have those longer chunks of time, this would be like you set up what group, blue group, you are working on blank, green group, you are working on blank. And then you would start that timer. And when the timer's done, then they rotate. Did that answer your question?
Somewhat. I think I have to play with it as the your end versus end user to see that, because I was able to click on it from this. I guess I'm looking at it when I downloaded the slide as if I'm the person who created it, not the end user. Because you're controlling the timer when all the kids are in there looking at which
Yes.
station they're on.
So I would envision this as you have this up on the smart board
Mhm.
and you could adjust the time. So like I know
Okay, that makes more
academics,
sense.
We only have.
I thought, I was looking at it from the point of view of I'm the kid in the class and I thought I was having to go through my own timing of working on what I'm working on.
Emma,
Yes.
I don't have any specific questions for each of them. So I don't want you to think I'm not engaged, but this is, I really like these templates to try to break it down. It kind of makes it simpler to think about how to do it. I really like the second one, the whole group rotation model. That template's solid. I mean, I feel like I could just come up. So like, we're going to go over how to plan a field trip, right? So this would be a great opportunity to kind of try to see how to do this, to do a blended learning model for that.
Awesome.
Really, I just wanted to turn myself off mute so you didn't think I was not engaged, for the people who are listening in on this session.
All right, it sounds like people are starting to have some comments or questions. So if I'm cutting people off, I'm always the last one to finish doing stuff and reading. And as an English teacher, I'll like look up, finish whatever we are given to read, and everybody's just staring at me waiting to be finished. So I try not to rush people because it's usually me that needs more time to read and process. All right, so what were some questions you guys had about any of these models or challenges?
I think my only concern of any sort of, station rotation model, my concern or what would be a challenge is just on task engagement of the non-teacher led station. Making sure that the station that the teacher is not sitting at, they're on task and not, talking about what they're doing this weekend or something. Whole group rotation concern. I said I worry about pacing issues, like students who maybe need more time with certain activities like reading or something like that. I don't really have any concerns about playlist model. I want to learn more about it. Bring it on.
Awesome. Any other questions, concerns you guys have?
So I like the first one as a science teacher, but it's kind of, so I can do it with like introduction into maybe like a lab or something like that. But I want to be able to do it because I like that whole, you have 4 stations and each kid's working on something different. And that way I can kind of, all right, you guys do your hypothesis for the lab that we're coming up with. You guys look up and research this or something like that. But I would like to find a way to do that with like doing the actual lab itself. But a lot of times in a lab, you only have like one thing at a time, like you have to follow the directions. So it's kind of hard to do that, but I do like that station rotation.
And I would say, and I like this specific one. I know my challenge, ideally, labs have a bigger chunk of time, and that timer one that we pulled up, you could have more time where they actually rotate through all of them in a given, class day. Lab can pull that off. Us academics, we have 45 minutes. So I liked this model where we have the 4 rotations, but they're only hitting one of them a day because, 45 minutes by the time you get kids in and settled and explain things. And especially if you're doing labs, it's going to involve some cleanup. But I think this one would probably be pretty good for, overseeing the actual hands-on experiment portion, where you're kind of demonstrating that. So each day you're working with a different kid. So you might need some other things that they are working on. So maybe there's like vocab that they need to be working on for that particular unit. So trying to come up with something different that students would rotate through on different days. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. I think that makes a lot more sense than to be honest with you, I didn't even look at that. I didn't see like the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. I just saw the station rotation. So I was like, oh, that'd be really cool. But yeah, doing it like every day, that way I can kind of break it up a little bit and have the kids, all right, today we're going to do vocab before we get started and everything like that. So that's actually really nice.
Yeah. So like Blue group today, you guys are at station 1, working on this vocab activity. Station 2 is, you know, with you doing that. So you need to come up with like 4 different things. And I think maybe Kate hit on that. You will have students off task in those other groups. So it is one, it takes a lot of training and practice. You need to really think about how you group students. You know, 1 or 2 that are maybe gonna kind of go astray per group, and then some stronger people in there that are leaders. And there will be some days that it doesn't work. It takes a lot of persistence. I used to teach Read 180, where we did a lot of these rotations. I had a lot more time, so I was able to work everybody through. I love the station rotation model. I've had to back off that with my particular class. Many of my classes are co-taught. So there's just a lot of students that, you know, literally have inability to stay focused and things like that. So I've moved more to the whole group rotation model. So beginning of class, we're kind of all doing a beginning of class activity together, going over what we're working on. And I know I've got some other English teachers in here. So we use a program called Read 180 for grammar. So we kind of do some things together, and then students go to their computers and work on things based on their needs. So some kids come in already pretty strong with grammar. I think it was this group talking about how we get students from all these different schools and their needs are really different. So some of our kids come in pretty strong already. So those kids just automatically go to the pre-test. And if they know it, they demonstrate that and they're done. Some kids are sent to their computers to watch a video lesson by me, and they're filling in guided notes to get them ready to take that pre-test. So I've started doing a lot more of that. Like, we're working together and then they're sent kind of their separate ways. We're trying to get as many of the independent kids working independently. That way the kids that need more support or explanation, or if you've got a kid absent, we as the teachers are a little more freed up to focus on those students who need us. The last one, this playlist model. So some of you that are familiar with Grid, there's a lot of similarities between there, where we set up sort of a pathway for students, their checkpoints. This I ended up using a lot more at the end of last year. I'm not sure if every school had the same route, but here at Scarlett, 4th quarter, students had the choice to be in person 5 days a week or continue remote learning. So, you know, I found myself planning for kids that I was going to have in front of me and kids that were at home that I wasn't going to get to see, that needed to understand how to work through things. So usually Monday, I would kind of set up what we were working on. The in-class people, I had sort of a set pacing, but the kids that were our high flyers, you know, finished that, moved on to the next thing, moved on to the next thing. And then when we got to Friday, you know, some of the kids that needed more support or weren't as motivated, you know, I would group them up and we kind of be working together, the more independent students. I'll be honest, I have puzzles in my room. The kids that are high flyers aren't behavior problems. They will read independently. They'll work on stuff for other classes. There were a few kids that I never would have guessed that got their work done so they could work on puzzles on Friday, like these 16-year-old boys. So it's just kind of learning what works for students, what works for you. So hopefully that kind of helps you figure out maybe what these models look like and what would work best for you, you know, depending on the unit, depending on how much time you have, depending on what your students' interests are. Okay, any other questions about this one pager?
I just wanted to jump in on the playlist. I've been doing the playlist with my juniors for the last several weeks. We have some teachers here that have jumped into the Grid, and kids are comparing Grid and playlist, and they prefer the playlist. They're not as intimidated that they have to do XYZ to get the grade that they want. So they're still doing everything. But one thing I have learned with it is I can very distinctly see 3 groups of my students. My kids that I give it to them, they're independent, they can go and they can fly on their own. A middle group that they just need a little bit of structure, like, hey, you should be here. And then another group that they need that daily direct instruction. So I split my kids into 3 groups, and I changed how often I am assessing them through their playlist. So it's been a really unique experience. I feel like I'm actually teaching, even though I'm not at the front of the room. I'm sitting with kids or a small group, saying, okay, let's work on this. Because, you know, some kids are on their phones. They're going to be on their phones. But at least when you're working with 5 kids, you know they're getting it because they're not going to be on your phone versus 25 kids and only 5 are listening. You're more effective essentially that way.
Yeah, that's a great comment. Okay, and then Kate had a few comments about this before we move on to our next thing. So just thinking about, you know, assigned seats, you know, we are still teaching in a pandemic. So concerns about having kids up and rotating around and intermixing with groups. If that's a concern, what we were talking to Brian about, where like it's maybe the same set of kids, but on Monday they're working with the teacher and that group stays together and it's kind of a one-day thing. And then the next day they come in and they go to that station. So it could be, you know, you're still kind of keeping pods of students together. So there isn't as much up in interaction. That's also going to cut down on in transition, you know, students intermixing with each other and getting off task. So that's a potential solution for that with our current situation. The other thing that she brought up was absences. And that's definitely a reality, one with sickness, quarantining. We've got students out on placement. We've got just, you know, people being absent in general. So I think that this really lends itself to catching those kids up. And like I said before, especially with like that playlist model where kids kind of know what they're working through for the week. When we get to Friday, that's sort of a where's everyone at? And, you know, our stronger high flyer kids done, they're going to find things to do independently, or you buddy them up with kids that were absent. And a lot of what these stations or online things that we're planning, they are going to come with some sort of video directions or things that you've already set up on the computer because those groups are independent. So in some ways, I think it kind of makes things helpful for catching kids up when they've been absent. Okay, any other thoughts, questions, comments? Okay, moving on. So let's talk about resources. We are our best resources. So I'm actually, you can go to the slide deck. This is a link that is kind of easy for me to just copy and paste into the chat as well. Okay, so you should in the chat have a link to a Padlet. So this is another way to get students simultaneously online collaborating. And as I said before, I'm not the most creative person, but I know what works when I see it. So I like to steal ideas and make them my own. So hopefully once you get in here, if you truly have access, there'll be little plus signs under columns that you click on to add a resource or two. And let me explain what we're looking for. So if we go back to that definition of blended learning, it is active, it is engaged. So students are doing things. There needs to be some instruction or background, but it shouldn't be a lot of sit and get. We need to, you know, try to break that up. So active engaged learning, either online, collaborative, working together, or offline. So it's this combination of online together, offline together, online individually, offline individually. So this is where we can kind of link some of our ideas. So I put a few of my ideas here. So online collaborative, this is an example of, if I can find it in all my tabs, missing open again. I have my students do debates. So they work collaboratively in a Google Doc while they are preparing their, you know, arguments, research, opening statements. So this is a doc that they work online together in, preparing sort of their team notes and plan of attack. People have different jobs. So then later I can go through and make sure everybody, you know, provided the information they were responsible for their group. So that individual accountability. So that's an example of something I do online collaborative. I'm going to gush about this one, this offline collaborative. I think this is so important for our students. getting them off of screens, giving them something they can do with their hands so that they can't have phones in them. And this was a vocab review game template that I found. It ended up taking more time than I thought it would, but it was really a valuable activity for students. And I'm going to assume all of us have some sort of vocabulary involved in our content. So for my English people, they're going to know what I'm talking about. Each quarter we have thematic terms, and then we have performance verbs. So I found this online, and there are two sort of templates for a game board, and students in their groups could pick out which template they wanted. And I have small kids, so I have lots of little trinkets and game pieces that I brought in. There are these little paper ones they could cut out as little markers to move around it. There are cards they can use to put vocab on, or directions for if they land on certain things. So it took them probably in a 45-minute Bell class about 2 days in their groups to design and create their games and test them. And then the third day, they traded their games with other groups and played them. And it was amazing how engaged all of my classes were with us. They were cutting things, they were drawing things, they were writing the vocab. And then when they were playing the games, they were successful because they had been working with that same vocabulary to prepare these games. So it was something that just really went well. It like I said, was a bit of time, but I thought it was really worth it. So that's something offline collaborative, online individualized. I've mentioned this before, many of my students are on IEPs, and their accommodations are that they get things read to them. So most of the time, English class, I can find, a YouTube where something is already read. Not always. So this was an example of me reading it, putting it on YouTube, posting it. So some students, get that as an accommodation, but then I would just post it in Schoology, and any student that wanted to listen and read along could, and many students would. And that's a way of kind of getting some groups quiet, focused, and engaged. So that worked really well. All right, so we will take maybe the next 5 minutes to think about what you've done in your classes already, or resources that you have used. So we had somebody last spell post Gimkit. Not sure where it fit, and I had that column. So we are looking for online collaborative. What could students be doing on their computers together? Offline collaborative. What could they be doing? No screens attached together. Individualized online. So those are usually things we can send them to Schoology to pick and choose what they need or their interest levels. Offline individualized. Our last group, we kind of struggled with this. What could students be doing on their own, but not on a screen? So maybe there's some sort of sorting activities you guys have, tactile things, models that they are working with or manipulating. And then finally, not sure where it fits. So if there's something that you found is really engaging for students, post it here. So we will take 5 minutes to kind of dig through our resources and post some items that we think could benefit the group.
I'm also going to ask you all to turn your cameras on, because I was asked to take some pictures, and screenshot it is. So thank you. Brian, you look great.
Give us a countdown.
Yeah, will you let us know? That way I'm not like this. That wouldn't be a good picture.
Yes, Morgan, because I already took one and you didn't. You weren't paying
Didn't look good.
You
Well,
didn't
I'm
look
like,
good.
I'm battling construction noises. I don't know what's going on. So I like.
Okay. At the count of 1, look engaged. 3, 2, 1. Cool. Thank you. Y'all look great.
All right, now back to work.
Hey, Emma.
Yes.
Things like the Google Doc that downloaded for that online collaborative of the debate.
Mhm.
Does that have a method that you're able to, as the presenter yourself, be able to tell who put what? It downloads the copy. I'm working on it for what I would have been putting on as the end user. But will it let you know, or are they going to each turn back in their own full document, or is this one that's alive? They'd be able to see what each person had been putting down. I see the comments, how that's working, but I'm looking at the actual copy of team shared debate organizer.
Okay, so
That's
you
just
are
a copy.
looking
That
at,
one's- That's
you're
not
looking
a
at my
live-
example?
Yeah, so that's not a live collaborative. Yeah, it's okay, because you don't see that I wrote test in evidence
Correct.
1.
Not in the actual document. You must have been, I saw this. Is that what you're talking
That's
about?
me. Yeah, the show, because I was going, how do you know who did? Obviously, in the comments, it'll be you're logged in, you'll see the person's name, but I was just thinking about which form of live collaborative format could be used for that debate note. Because if we were sitting here, if they were zooming from home and they were working on it together at the same time, or even in the classroom quietly at different tables, that they'd be able to be sitting there typing in and see that the other person was putting that one in one. And not only that, you'd be able to tell who participated and contributed.
Okay, so let me speak to that. Once, so basically, in their groups, I would assign one person per group. So Keener, you're going to make a copy of this document, the debate notes, and you are going to add everybody in your group to it. And how they do that. So if I'm the person that got picked to download it, I make a copy of this, and then I go up here to share, and then I start adding the people in my group in. And usually what I'll do with my students, because spelling each other's names is a challenge, is pass the computer around the group and they all put their email in, and then they'll go to their email, and then they're all working in the same document at the same time.
Yeah.
Next
Shared document.
question is, how do I know who did their work? So for this particular document, they had different roles. So one person was the spy. So we were doing debates. We were doing this to work on claims, counterclaims. So the spy's job was to go and eavesdrop on the group that they were going to be debating against and gather intel. What arguments is that group going to make, and bring it back? So one of their jobs was as a spy, they were going to deliver the opening statement. So they needed to fill this in. And I know I'm the one that assigned roles to people. So this document got turned in for the debate. And I'd be like, well, my spy is Kate, and she has her opening statement. She worked with the rebuttal person. So they brought a counterclaim. The other group's going to say this, and filled it in. And then the rebuttal person had to find a way to overcome it. So I could look through this document to know who did their job for individual accountability. Was that what you were asking?
A little bit. I mean, they're going to turn in, you're going to have to then say, okay, they were this, that. It's not like they're working on one large document where person 1 is in red ink, person 2 is in blue ink, person 3 is in black ink to know who inputted what.
As they type, it doesn't do that. Visually, that does help them make sure they're typing in the right spot, and me when I'm spot checking it. So you will notice I have red and blue and black. So that helps them kind of know where they need to be going and typing. We as adults need those things as well. All right, we are getting kind of low on our time here. So I see lots of great things added. With our last 2 or 3 minutes here, we are going to go to our wrap up.
Is actually.
So either with a live thumbs up or your emoji thumbs up. Let's see if we hit our targets here. So how many people can define blended learning or go back to their document and find it? Waiting for 100 participation. Keener.
Yeah, I missed the last part, participation on what? I was answering something.
All right. Do you feel like you can define blended learning or go back to your document to find that information?
I can find it.
Awesome. Okay. Identify potential challenges and benefits, why it's ultimately good for
Keep
students.
those thumbs up. I'm taking one more photo so Sadie can be in it. Thumbs up and 3, 2. LT, you're driving me bonkers, but thank you.
I know, and this is
I
the
prefer-
session I recorded, and he's been a
I
troll.
don't, yeah, and
this
I
whole
don't
time.
like that in the first place.
You're trolling. That's cool.
No.
All right, number
accepted.
3.
I don't like my image used anywhere.
Oh, well, you have protected it every time she's taken a picture, so you were good. Okay, number 3, differentiate between the station rotation, whole group model, and playlist model. Everybody feel like they understand the difference of those 3? Which model works for you and your students? Do people have kind of a visual of which of those methods would kind of work for what they teach, the time that they have, or how their students learn best? A little more hesitant on that. Probably takes some actual just trying things out. We learn so much more from our failures. I remind myself all the time I fail. Resources that we already have at our disposal. So we do not need to reinvent the wheel on this. What are some lessons, some activities we already have that work well that we can just set up where students are rotating through instead of all of us each day? And then as soon as tomorrow, but not tomorrow because it's the weekend, is there something new that you feel like you could try out? Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate everybody's attendance and participation. And if you guys ever have any questions or ideas, shoot them my way.
Thanks,
Enjoy the rest
Emma.
of your day, guys.